Now, building on the masculine-feminine balance, this is not just within the relationship, it's within the lifestyle. Many tribes throughout history, they had women's circles and men's circle, and they had emotional time, sifting, quiet, stillness, weaving, sewing, stitching, singing, dancing. They had emotional time and they had ritual time. Now, what we're looking at here is another expression of the masculine-feminine balance in culture. Now, in a healthy, optimal culture, you spend about 4 hours a day navigating and integrating one's feelings, one's inner world. You spend about 4 hours a day moving forward and growing in some kind of a personal way. You spend about 4 hours a day growing and connecting in a relational and doing community work. Your 16 hours a day is heart, mind, and body, inner and out, personal and group. Investing in the future, investing in the present, tending to the past. And you find the full expression of human emotion is welcome. You have a certain amount of ritual and a certain amount of lineal logic. And you have an incredibly organic and peaceful culture. Well, I started noticing with my partners that if we could spend 4 hours a day in comfortable present time, in meta-conversation, where there was plenty of time to talk about everything that went on and the mutual feelings of everything that went on, and get to know everything that went on, that the relationship could grow and be frictionless. But that either if, it's constantly together without an outlet, a closed system, or if other outside forces are setting the pace and there's much more going on outside than can be integrated, and there's a fractious space, like you arrive home and you're tired and you can't listen to anything, and that's the time when your partner is bursting to tell you something and you clash. You clash in need, you clash in pace, you clash in the amount of time it would take to be gentle with something versus the time you actually have. And so there's all kinds of pain. But if there's 4 hours a day or more, there's no surprises. There's time to experience and grow and enjoy and eat and make love, but there's also time to talk about what came up, like, gee, I noticed when I was starting our foreplay, this started to come up for me. And there's no sense of we don't have time to talk about that. No, you talk about it for a minute, for 5 minutes, for an hour, and you have spaciousness around that. It makes all the difference in the world. Robert Bly talks about the fact that if there isn't art in the relationship, now he says if the woman does not create art, music, food, painting, drawing, poetry, if the woman doesn't create and bring the feminine into the space through the right brain ritual expression, the relationship will die. And in the traditional sense, if the man is bringing the structure, the money, the routine, the effort, negotiating the leases, etc., that's the masculine pole. And if the woman is bringing the cleanliness, the ambiance, the sensuality, the sense of family, the food, the touch, the art, the painting, the attention to detail, that these two energies meet and create something that's much bigger than either one can create alone. Now, of course, in homosexual and all the different configurations of relationship, this particular polarity can be expressed by either gender or both gender, where again, there's someone holding the masculine pole and there's someone holding the feminine pole. Now, when that's done in balance and in honor, there is tremendous peace and growth and synergy. It doesn't matter if the man is the feminine one and the woman is the masculine one, the other way around, if it's a feminine man and a masculine man, etc., etc. Now, it can also be more mixed, where you have the masculine, I'm going to be the masculine one this month, and you're going to be the masculine one next month, or we're going to do, you make the money this year in your job, I'm going to take a year off, I'll make the money. What matters is the symmetry of the masculine and feminine. Because what we're dealing with on an alchemical level is the charge of a battery. Now, we would fire any battery engineer that made batteries that had an 80% positive charge and a 20% negative charge. Because as soon as the negative charge was used up, the battery would stop working. And so it would only be 20% efficient. So waste. And so we don't hire idiotic battery designers, but we do hire idiotic cultural designers that in the West dramatically emphasize the masculine and profoundly neglect the ritual space, the emotional literacy, the relational literacy, the time curated within the standard template of the culture for everyone to spend 4 or more hours connecting in a meaningful way. And what we're doing is we're creating pain, we're creating dissociation, we're creating grief, we're creating numbness, then we're anesthetizing that pain with a variety of addictive sexes, monies, compulsive behavior, pornography, etc., to mask the pain, and then it gets worse, and it goes into a downward spiral. So if we can change the context, we can do it with 10 people. Let's create the kind of framework where we consciously curate the masculine and feminine, where rather than all of us having 5,000 square foot spaces and this and that and the other, where we have maybe 120 square foot spaces of our personal, sleeping, comfortable, quiet, serene place. And then we share a common kitchen and bathing and bathroom and social areas and art areas and ritual. And the cost of housing is down 50%. So when in many areas the cost of housing is 1/3 of the cost of living. So when you bring that down to 15%, you don't need to work as hard to pay the mortgage. So you can then structure work that is more self-governed in a way that consciously curates this balance within community. It's a powerful opportunity, a beautiful opportunity to change the probability field. Because now you've got 10 people. Now you've got a less closed system than one person, because one of the biggest variables in childhood abuse in the United States is the dissociated, traumatized family. In other words, the emphasis on the individual, the lack of emotional literacy, the lack of trauma literacy in an American individual that says, fuck you, I'm going to get out of this house. That's what I did at 17. The pain, the trauma, etc. Couldn't wait to get away. But now there's no grandparents for the child. And if you spend time in Thailand, or even in Brazil, you find these multi-generational families that have uncles and aunts and grandfather and grandmother on this side and grandfather and grandmother on this side and grandchildren on this side and grandchildren here. And the container for these two parents discovering what parenting is for the first time is really strong. And the adults and the grandfathers and the grandmothers, they love the baby. And they are loved and protected and cared for. And so there's this incredible open womb, a family womb, in which the parents can grow up and mature, in which the child can grow up and mature, within a safe network, where when one parent loses their temper, they can go to a grandmother and feel safe rather than developing PTSD because there's nowhere to go. So this is an enormous gift, but it's similar. When 5 to 10 people get together in a co-housing project with a conscious culture of bringing in these metrics and protecting the couplehood within a container where one can help when the other is having problems. It's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. There's obviously a lot to talk about in that domain, but suffice it to say that when you're in a very unbalanced, unhealthy, and chauvinistic country and culture, defaulting unconsciously to what everyone else is doing immediately predisposes that relationship to 80% failure. And failure is painful. And when you don't have emotional and relational literacy and you create pain within the relationship, the odds of it moving towards violence are very high.